I want to thank Carolina Fire Journal for allowing us to do this webinar panel discussion. As everyone knows, the Fire Journal is a great organization. It delivers a lot of good information to our fire departments and the vendors, and we certainly appreciate the information that they provide us. So, all right, without further ado, I think we will go ahead and get kicked off. Appreciate everyone joining for this fire station construction panel. We've got some great people that we're going to hear from today to talk about fire station financing, design, and some equipment. So looking forward to talking to everyone. Just real quick, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat box, or you can email them to us, and we can, if we have time at the end, we can answer them. If there's if this runs a little bit over and we're not able to answer your question, we will get back to you on that. So at the end of the presentation, everyone will receive an email with this slideshow in it, and then also our contact information. So feel free to ask questions. This is the team that we have here today to talk about this. And my name is Chris Goins. I am the moderator. To tell you a little bit about Bobbitt, I'm a business developer with Bobbitt. We started in 1946, and we are an employee-owned company. And Bobbitt is an integrated design builder that has architecture, engineering, and general contractor under the same roof. So we've got all those components in the same office. I joined the Bobbitt team in 2013. I've been involved with 6 fire station projects since 2013, and I'm an active participant in the Midwinter Fire Chief Conference and SAFER. So I'm sure I've seen a lot of you at those shows. Next, we have Lauren Pittman with Civic Federal Credit Union. Hey, Lauren.
Hey, Chris. Glad to be here. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Great. I just want to make sure. So yeah, definitely appreciate being here and part of the panel. We definitely miss the personal interaction that we've had with fire service on a regular basis. And, I think this is a good format and a good way to at least get some exposure back in the fire service. And definitely happy to be here. And I hope this is somewhat informative for the participants today. But just to start out a little bit about me, I've been, my career, I've been in banking and with the credit union pretty much since I got out of, graduated from Appalachian State University. I've been doing this for 20 years, started out in banking and management, managed several offices in Charlotte, and then moved over to Raleigh, North Carolina, and managed some offices in Raleigh. I've been working with the credit union now for 10 years, and I'm never looking back. I love working for a credit union. I've been responsible for fire, rescue, and EMS lending over those 10 years. And at one time, I covered the entire state. Now I cover the central part of the state, and I head out west. So that's my area of responsibility. A little bit about our loan program. I think a lot of you are familiar. We started our program back in 2006 under local government federal credit union. The rationale behind it was we were going to provide more affordable financing, fairer terms to fire departments, rescue and EMS departments. And we've had a great success with that over 15 years. But a change for us was in 2019, we transitioned our loan program over to Civic Federal Credit Union. And Civic Federal Credit Union is a digital first credit union that was initiated by local government federal credit union. So we have some of the same board members from LGFCU on our Civic board. It's just a little bit different format, and we're able to continue working with the fire service as well as expand some of the services that we offer to our membership. So that's pretty much it about myself and my organization, and thank you again.
Yes. Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate that. Next, we're going to hear from Brian Griffith, who's an architect at Bobbitt. Brian, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Good to see you, and good to see the entire panel, and happy to be here. I'm another one of the old guys. I've been with the Bobbitt for over 20 years. As you can see, I seem to like to acquire certifications. One of the most intriguing is I am both an architect and general contractor, licensed for both, so I hate myself. And most of you in the industry will understand that joke. If not, you're very lucky, but time to talk to you about a new building because you haven't dealt with the interaction typically between a general contractor and architect. I'm happy to share my knowledge both here and also in person through Bobbitt, and hopefully we have a great presentation. I have worked closely with Bill quite a few times, and Lauren has always been very helpful with our buildings.
Great. Thank you. And last but not least, we have Bill LaFavor with Air Cleaning Specialist. Hey, Bill.
Hi, how are you doing, Chris?
Good.
Thanks again for Bobbitt, or thanks to Bobbitt for organizing this webinar. I think it's going to be very helpful for all the people who are attending. I've been in this business for a while. After graduating in East Carolina back in 1993, I actually joined forces with my father. We're a family-owned business. And I have been associated with the fire department since, like I said, since 1993. So for a long time now, I was a part of one of the first midwinter fire conferences and attended my first North Carolina Chiefs Association up in Asheville back in '93. So we are a commercial industrial air cleaning company. So we provide industrial air cleaners for manufacturing facilities. And a big thrust of our business, though, is in the fire station and EMS markets. We provide all different types of creative ways to minimize the risk associated with diesel exhaust. Pretty much started on the ground floor, doing installation, servicing, and engineering of the systems. And I've attended numerous industrial ventilation conferences here in North Carolina, and have had several hours of instructional and system design in the field of ventilation and fume exhaust systems.
Great. Thanks, Bill. All right, we're going to kick off the panel now with a question for Lauren Pittman. Lauren, when a fire department is considering construction lending, what are some of the key things to look for?
Chris, I think the obvious things to look for are going to be making sure that your fire department is getting a loan that has the best rate, really good terms, the payments that are being offered will fit your budget, whether or not there's any prepayment penalties. I think those basic things are really the most important things, but there's more to it when it comes to construction loan. Usually you've got real estate as collateral. There's a lot more requirements, cost, things to consider. So here's what I typically see when a fire department is going out and they're trying to decide on what financial institution they're going to partner with. Usually the board of directors will elect one person. It's just efficient that way to go out and do some research and collect that general information that I was talking about, the terms, the rates, taking all that information back to the board of directors and having that board of directors make the decision. And usually with a truck loan, I think that's sufficient. I mean, truck loans are pretty simplistic. The most discussion that I usually get in with a fire chief about a truck loan is whether or not it's going to be a prepay transaction where we actually fund that loan in advance, or if it's going to be a pay on delivery. I mean, there are some nuances there that we have some discussions about. If we're going to, fund a chassis or something like that, it could get difficult. But for the most part, I think that is that's a good design to have one person go out, efficiently and effectively collect that information, take it back to the board. And I think for a fire truck, that's appropriate. I think where fire departments, I see they make a mistake is when it comes to real estate lending and construction lending in particular, they use that same methodology, collect the information, take it back to the board, and the board makes this decision. And really, that's only half the picture. You don't have all the information I think you need to make a really informed decision. So, yeah, and why is that? I mean, banks don't necessarily disclose all the information up front, and they're reluctant to do so, I think, for several reasons. One is they don't want to talk about the negative. They don't want to talk about the cost, the fees, the process you have to go through for a construction loan. What they want to do is they want to focus on rate and term and payment. And a lot of that reason is because there's no disclosure laws like a consumer has. When you're going to go refinance or take out a mortgage, you're going to get something called a good faith estimate. And the good faith estimate will list out all the cost, all the fees, the interest rate, and it'll actually disclose that not only in terms of dollar, but they'll also convert that over to the interest rate. And you've got an APR, a disclosure APR. And if you got information from several different mortgage loan officers, you can actually go and look at the APR and just select the one with the lowest APR and go with that, and you're going to be fine. That just doesn't exist with business and commercial loans. You don't have the same consumer protection laws. So some of the ways you can safeguard against not getting all the information is to look for a lender that's got a lot of experience doing this, providing construction loans and working with the fire service. Another thing is that you want to make sure that you're partnering with a lender that's going to disclose all the loan requirements and costs up front prior to you making a decision. And the other thing that's key is communication. I think the communication between the loan officer and the fire service and the fire department is critical. So I'll start out with experience. Why is that so important? This is the largest financial transaction that your fire department will be making. So it's probably the single largest investment that you're going to make. That's why it's critical that you're partnering with a lender that's got experience doing this. You just do not want an experiment. And a good way to find out is just simply ask. You've got every right to ask. This is your project. So I would ask the lender, how much experience do you have? What fire stations have you financed? And get those references and follow up with those references. Call the fire chief, ask them, for a department that was funded by that loan officer, ask them how it went, how their experience was. So what's our experience over at Civic? Well, we've been doing this for 15 years, and we've been solely focused on the fire service. So we've worked with over 400 fire departments across North Carolina. That's almost half the volunteer fire departments that we have worked with. We have funded over $400 million to the fire service. That's almost $500 million. Also, I do cover the central part of the state and go out west. I did want to say Jason Rackley, he's our other loan officer. He covers the central part and he heads out out east. You may be more familiar with Jason if you're on the eastern part of the state. We both have a lot of experience, and I think we both do a very good job for the fire service. We've also got the experience that we've built relationships with the partners like Bobbitt, as an example, other architects, other GCs, and we can certainly just give them a call on the phone if there's a problem that comes up, and we can help resolve those things and make the whole process smoother. So that's our experience. The other thing that I said was important is just understanding the financial institution's loan requirements up front. I think it's critical. Every financial institution has a different set of rules and requirements, and I think a fire department really should understand what they are before making a decision on who they're going to partner with. I'll give you a couple of examples of things that could go wrong. I had a fire chief call me that I reached out to their fire department, and I've never worked with them before, but they called me back and they said, "Hey, Lauren, we are in the middle of a project getting approved for from the financial institution, and they're now telling us that they need financial statements from the builder." Well, they never told us that up front, and the builder is reluctant to provide those statements. And I don't really take issue at the fact that a financial institution is looking to get financial statements from a lender. I think it's part of a due diligence, and a lot of financial institutions require that, including us. What I take issue with is the fact that they didn't tell them that up front. So, just stalling that project out is just unfair, and disclosing that up front would have been something that I would recommend. Every financial institution is different for their requirements. Let's use USDA as an example. USDA is a very good source of funding. They have excellent low fixed interest rates. They have loan terms up to 40 years, which is great for your budget. But, I found that some fire departments will look back and say, hey, after 20 years, we still owe over half of what our project was. And they go and look to refinance, and you pay a lot of interest over 40 years. So be careful what you ask for there. USDA requirements, they actually require 1 year of payments in reserves at all times. So just know that going in. If your annual payment is $100,000, you're going to have to keep $100,000 in reserves. Also, there are additional administration costs associated with USDA. I was talking to a fire department recently, and they told me that the project, they had to actually budget another $100,000 just for the additional administration costs. And I've spoken to other GCs as well, and they tell me that they build in additional administrative costs when they know that the lender is going to be USDA. Also, they don't offer a construction phase, so you'll have to find a suitor bank that will offer the construction portion of the loan. So not beating up on USDA at all. I'm just giving you an example of every lender is different. All the requirements are different. So I think it's critical to have that communication. The loan officer going to the board of directors, communicating directly with them, I think is imperative, because I think it's unrealistic to have one person from the fire department collect all the information from all the other financial institutions and be an expert with this and communicate that properly to the board. So I'm an advocate of going in, talking in person, doing a WebEx, talking about the cost, the process, all the requirements. And Chris, I actually created a loan guide in writing that I will give to the fire department that discloses all that. And it's kind of like an instruction manual that you can actually refer back to. So those are my three things, I think: experience, getting full disclosure, and having that good communication between the loan officer and the fire department and the board of directors.
Great. Thanks, Lauren. And I can say that Bobbitt has worked with Civic on multiple fire station projects, and we hear nothing but great things from the departments about the ease of working with you guys and the customer service that you provide. I do want to mention that Bobbitt is happy to supply our financials to any financial institution. We are a debt-free company, so that is not a problem for us, but I can see how some other GCs that may be an issue. So thanks, Lauren. Appreciate that information. Next up, we got a question for Brian Griffith. Brian, what are the advantages of hiring an architect with fire station design experience?
Thank you, Chris. Fire stations are unique, and they are unique not just as a type, but between each one of the stations. Every station has something that's a little different that you can't just take a plan that was used elsewhere and reuse. It's really the architect's job to bring all the pieces together and also to understand what the uniqueness of this station is. I've had stations say, we're going to barbecue 400 chickens in a custom built barbecue in the back. We're going to open up our bays, and we need to accommodate those tables on a flat floor. What can you do to make everything work? We are happy to do that. We've also had it where the community, let's say seniors come in, Boy Scouts come in, Girl Scouts come in. We've had it where the department's used as a polling station during some of the election cycles. We've had it where emergency operations center for the entire county is headquartered here. All of those things are questions an architect should know. An experienced fire station architect absolutely knows. Bringing all that together is not just the function of the building, it goes well beyond that. So one of the biggest impacts on price is typically the site, is knowing the architect should be well versed in terms of working with the civil engineer. What are the soil borings? Are there geological issues, especially in North Carolina and South Carolina, with some of our expansive soils, the clays, and even rock as we get towards the mountains, has a huge impact on the budget. And it's not just that building. It's also bringing in all the other trades. So we have plumbing engineers, we have mechanical engineers, we have electrical engineers, and every one of those has a series of issues in terms of how green of a design, how environmentally friendly do we want to incur? Do we want to do cutting edge, wonderful mechanical systems, but it takes a specialist who may not be readily available if the system goes down? How does that plumbing work? Do we have a huge water demand that we're running 12 showers at a time, and we need to meet that at any time? So we need to look at different systems, having that open conversation back and forth with the client in refining. And we can't forget the budget. That's always important as well, is making sure all of those things tie together and we work well together as a package. And it's also good of having that architect experience with great people like Bill in terms of the equipment that he'll discuss later, which is a great asset, and also the financing with Lauren and bringing all of those things together. So as an architect, prototypes are great, but it's a starting point. Every station needs to be unique and designed to each thing. Even if it does turn back to the prototype, let's make sure that we challenge all of those decisions and do a great job.
So Brian, I know that Bobbitt's been involved with over 40 fire stations, but how many have you personally been involved with?
I've been involved well over 20. Luckily, we've built most of those, and with the other architects, we've gotten to that. And we are happy to help any of the fire stations look at their needs. One thing is that it's not just the architecture and general contracting. We have a civil engineer and landscape architect in-house, as well as interiors that can help look at the station and evaluate some of the needs they may have.
Yeah. And what's the geographical locations that you've covered?
Our strong points are the Carolinas, North and South Carolina. I've done stations out by the mountain. I've done it all the way to the coast. I've done it down to Savannah, Georgia. And depending if it's the right station, we'll actually go out. I've done projects in Virginia and Georgia as well.
Great. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next question is for Bill. So Bill, my department purchased a new fire apparatus with the new DEF fluid technology. Do I still need an exhaust system? Do I need a source capture exhaust system, or can I just use general ventilation fans?
Thanks again, Chris, for organizing this webinar. It's a very good question and one that is being asked more frequently. First of all, we have to go through a little bit of history of the new diesel engine technology. The emergence of this new technology began back in 2007 with the EPA 07 requirement. Since then, they've changed the design throughout the years and have added some more features to the original design, but it's pretty much basically the same. The technology still allows both particulate matter and gas to escape through the filter system. Some of your truck manufacturers will often tell a customer that the new engines are cleaner than the outside air, and that's just not the case. I mean, at the end of the day, you're still burning a fossil fuel. Okay, and so since 2007, all new fire apparatus being provided in the marketplace do have a new technology diesel engine. This technology may include diesel particulate filters, aka DPFs, diesel oxidation catalysts, otherwise known as DOCs, a selective catalytic reducer, SCRs, and a control unit that injects urea into the exhaust. The newer engines also run on low sulfur fuel. With all the new advancements in diesel technology, one would think that everyone in the station is quote unquote safe from the hazards of diesel exhaust. That's just not the case. Based on recent research, diesel exhaust may be safer, but it's not necessarily safe. And there are several studies that have examined the new technology diesel engines, and it's clear that while the after treatment technologies have reduced the health risks, harmful substances still remain. In 2015, the Advanced Collaborative Emissions Study, ACES, managed by the Health Effects Institute, published research stating that the new diesel engine technology reduced the toxic air pollutants by 90%. While the ACES research was received with great optimism, the 90% reduction level has not been universally accepted. In 2016, there was a Canadian health report that was published that stated that the new diesel engine technology only removed more than 70% of the compounds of diesel exhaust. So there are some conflicting reports out there. The ACES research also focused its research primarily on NO2 rather than particulate matter. The challenge is that there is no acceptable limit of diesel exhaust, and it's complex and contains both carbon particulates and over 40 chemicals that are classified as hazardous air pollutants under the Clean Air Act. The new diesel engine technology has significantly increased the amount of carbon monoxide levels being expelled from the tailpipe. Carbon monoxide builds up in the body, and after every exposure, it can be detrimental when not properly controlled. And firefighters spend 24 to 48 hours at a time in the fire stations. So there are toxic gas monitors that have been installed in a lot of fire stations, especially the newer stations. We've retrofitted some older stations with it, but we are now seeing on these new DPF vehicles, when they first initial crank up of the diesel engine, is in excess of 100 parts per million of carbon monoxide. And like I said, we know this because some of the ventilation controls, which I'll get into here in a minute, we actually have the CO and NO2 detectors as part of that integration.
Great.
Diesel exhaust also contains ultrafine particles, which are easily absorbed into the lung tissues into the bloodstream. These particles have been shown to have a negative effects on the cardiovascular system and are considered the most dangerous types of all particulate matter because they are small enough to be able to contribute to translocation across the cell barrier. So they can actually get into the bloodstream, and once they get into the bloodstream, they can go to different organs in the body, including the brain. And also the research has indicated that, has suggested that some of these particles could be urea decomposition particles. So urea that's been injected into the exhaust that hasn't actually made it through the whole process, and you actually have raw urea coming out in the airstream. Another factor for firefighters to consider is how the new diesel engine technology functions when the apparatus is idling. A lot of the new diesel technology devices require consistent high temperature, high engine temperatures to operate as intended. So in one study, a 2012 diesel truck with a diesel oxidation catalyst installed showed an increase of NO2 emissions when after treatment temperatures were below 570 degrees. So these devices are intended to be operated at very high temperatures, 1100, 1200, even 1000 degrees. So when you start getting into the lower temperatures, like what you would find in a fire apparatus, some of these, catalytic reducers and some of these other devices are not as effective. Which brings me into another point that with the SCR, or the selective catalytic reducer, when the engine is first started, the SCR's job is to inject ammonia into the gas stream, and it's supposed to react with NO and NO2 to form nitrogen and water. Well, when this injector doesn't work properly, you actually have what's considered ammonia slip. So, and raw ammonia gets emitted into the air stream as well. And inhalation of ammonia can cause fluid to accumulate in the lungs. And ammonia slips are more common when engine temperatures are lower, kind of like what you would find in a fire apparatus bay. So in conclusion, the most effective and recommended approach is to provide a localized exhaust removal system, which otherwise known as a source capture system, that connects directly to the tailpipe of the apparatus, and it follows the apparatus to the exiting door to try to provide the maximum amount of exhaust coverage for each fire apparatus. NIOSH and NFPA still recommend source capture systems for fire apparatus inside the stations, but there's no better means to get as close to 100% evacuation of the hazards as a source capture system. But I would also use a combination of source capture and also ventilation to try to create a whole bay life safety system. It's very critical. We have a package that's available that we can integrate the source capture exhaust fan with your general ventilation, exhaust, and your makeup air systems, and also integrate that with the CO and NO2 systems. And it really helps and provides a whole bay cleaner environment, especially for, you might have a source capture system for your fire truck, but what are you doing for your saw that you're starting every morning, or your leaf blower that you're blowing in the station? A lot of the 2-cycle engines produce massive amounts of carbon monoxide. And so we're able to control that and provide a much better packaged life safety system. We've been doing this for a long time, guys. We've had over 750 fire stations that I've personally been involved with that we've installed and are still to date up and running.
Great. Well, thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
I think we can certainly agree that the reduction of carcinogens and cancer prevention and is super important, and appreciate everything you do for that.
Thank you.
All right. We actually have another question for Bill, but let me go back. So Bill, what design parameters do I need to prepare for with the exhaust system? What kind of maintenance and life expectancy will I incur with the source capture system?
That's a good question. The parameters are really simple. We just need to know kind of what the construction is of the facility, whether it's a brick, block building, metal, shingled roof, metal roof, membrane, some of the ins and outs of just the building itself, what kind of power requirements are there. Is there a dedicated apparatus bay that they use to provide truck maintenance? Some of the stations now are actually providing that, so we kind of need to know that so we can implement the correct controls for that space. Are there any training platforms inside the station? Are they repelling from the ceiling? Are they repelling from a mock-up wall that they've created inside the bay to kind of give them some real life experiences for repelling out of windows and whatnot. Radiant heaters and lighting, they also need to be coordinated. And of course, everybody's seen the quote unquote big ass fans. That we need to make sure that we can coordinate all of our equipment around that as well. So it's very simple, but when you look at the design phase of it, it's very critical. I mean, it's simple, but it's extremely critical because you need to make sure that your mechanical and electrical work together so that you don't leave anything out in the construction documents that may cause a problem down the road. So, that's what we bring to the table is we're A to Z guys. We can handle the design phase, and we can actually design all the electrical and the mechanical and make sure that the ductwork is sized correctly and to integrate that with the CO, NO2 and try to help the design group like a Bobbitt, for example, design that correctly. As far as the maintenance, our system comes with a 5-year warranty. We come in at no extra charge to the fire department for the first 5 years, every 6 months. And we do just a little routine preventative maintenance, little safety checklist that we do on every job, as well as we're available 24/7 to the fire department at no extra charge. So if there's a storm that rolls through the area and power is knocked out and they realize that the Plymouth vent fan isn't coming on, then we dispatch a technician, and it doesn't cost the fire department anything for the first 5 years. So as far as on a daily maintenance, really the only thing that I would do is just make sure that the tailpipe is okay. I mean, some of the trucks will go off road, some of them will cross parking lots, you know, and hit some barriers. And so you just need to make sure that the integrity of the tailpipe is there. All the motors are sealed, so you don't have to worry about greasing any motors.
And Bill, what are the geographical locations that you cover?
Well, we primarily cover North and South Carolina. That's been our strong suit since the early 90s. You know, it took us a while to build the organization up. We have a really good organization now that, you know, we can handle everything from A to Z. I've got 5 service technicians, which are strategically located throughout the Carolinas. So we can respond within 24 hours. You know, I have my own installation crew. I've got 3 sales technicians, and then, you know, we do all the engineering as well of the systems. So like I said, we've been involved in almost 900 different vehicle exhaust systems, and over 750 of those have been fire and EMS.
Nice. What separates you from your competition?
You know, I would say there are really 3 things. Communication, coordination, and commitment are really the 3 things. You know, we communicate, you know, if we tell you we're going to do something, we're going to do it. So we commit to you, and we coordinate all the activities. You know, I mean, we are a local source that has provided these services to the fire industry since '92, and we're very good at what we do. My installers are by far some of the best in the country. They go through really good training, as well as my service technicians. Very thorough. I mean, I would put my crew up against anybody. They're really that good, and so we actually do care, but we also communicate, coordinate, and commit to what we're doing.
Great. Thanks, Bill. Some good information. Next question here is for Lauren. Lauren, can you explain the working parts of a construction to permanent loan?
I sure can, Chris. So the first step is to take an application from the fire department, and with that, we'll collect financials, we'll collect bylaws, we'll get a board resolution, we'll underwrite the loan, but also for a construction loan, we have an additional step where we ask for the builder's financials. You know, we want to understand the builder's suitability to construct your project. So that's an extra layer of protection where a fire department may not necessarily, while they're selecting a builder, want to look at financial statements, and they may not even look at the resume. They just, you know, they're going by word of mouth sometimes. So we do have that extra layer of protection. And a lot of the builders we've already worked with so many times, you know, we're very comfortable with most of the builders that are in the business to build and construct fire stations. Also, we do an additional review on the project itself. And why that's important to the financial institution is because if you think about it, the collateral doesn't exist yet. We're lending money on a building that hasn't been built. And so we want to just have a good understanding what the collateral is going to end up looking like. We ask for the project's plans, specifications. We want to see a contract. We want to see the budget. Also, that information is critical for the appraiser. Once the loan gets approved, we actually ask or bid out an appraisal. Well, the appraiser, that collateral doesn't exist, so they use what's known as a cost approach appraisal. And they're basing the appraised value on all those elements that I talked about, the plans, specifications, the budget, the contract. All that gets incorporated to get a valid appraised value. And so that's part of what we do after the loan is approved. We do order a real estate appraisal. We actually bid that out. We ask for a land and boundary survey. So that's the initial survey. There's an environmental report that's done. And then once all that, it goes through all that, the loan actually closes with an attorney. And that actually could be remote as well. We could do that over the phone. There's no need to go into the attorney's office. So after the loan gets approved, it goes to the initial construction phase. That construction phase will be anywhere from 12 to 18 months, and it's really going to be dependent upon the duration of your construction project. So we see that that's part of the construction contract. It lays out the time frame. So we try to coincide the construction phase with the duration of your project. In the initial phase, your payments are going to be based on interest only payments on a monthly basis, and they're going to be based on that running balance that you have. So your payments in the beginning are going to be lower, and they're gradually going to go up. During the construction phase, we typically see draw requests or payment applications come through. Those are usually going to be submitted by the general contractor, and they're just asking for those draws on a regular basis. Those payment applications are going to be either approved by the owner, which is the fire department, in the case that you don't have an administrative architect, or if you have an administrative architect responsible for the administration of the project, they'll be signed off by that architect. We'll get those in. We actually send out an independent inspector that goes and on site, and they'll review the project, and they just want to make sure that the work has been done for whatever funds are being requested. So that's another layer of protection that we have for the fire service, is just making sure that, you know, the funds being requested are actually valid. So after the construction phase, after that 12 or 18 month period, our loans actually convert right to the permanent phase. There's no second closing required, so you don't have a second closing with an attorney, and your interest rate is the same interest rate as what you started with in the beginning.
Awesome. Lauren, why would someone select Civic over your competition?
Chris, I think there's several reasons. Just coming from the financial institution ourselves. So Civic is focused on the fire service, and we actually are a digital first credit union, a branchless network. And I think, you know, considering our environment that we've been in, I think that's become more important this year than it was last year. I think there was some reluctance when we were talking about to fire departments about transitioning the accounts over from local government federal credit union to Civic. I think that branch network was really important. Well, times have changed, and I think the branch network has become a lot less important. And now what I find is both consumers and businesses want to do banking without a branch. A lot of times you can't even go into a branch anymore. So we've got the infrastructure that we had the foresight to create for your fire department to be able to operate this way. So I'm really proud of that. Also, Civic has some of the best deposit rates that I've ever seen. I'll tell you that I see a lot of bank statements when I review loans, and I consistently see banks paying 0.01%, 0.05%, not a whole lot of interest. And in particular with businesses, a consumer will, on average, gets better rates versus a business or commercial industry. So just understand that. And our money market account rate right now is paying 0.75. So it's multiple times better than what I'm seeing. Also, back to our loan process and our program, we've got the experience working with the North Carolina Fire Service that I think is going to really add value. We have a simple one-page application. There's no public hearing. We don't have any origination costs with our loans. There's no prepayment penalties on any of our loans, so they could be paid off or refinanced at any time. We've got very low rates, especially right now in this market. We've got extremely low rates, and our rates are fixed. We've got terms up to 15 years. And the other thing that we do, I think that sets us apart, is we support the North Carolina Fire Service unlike any other financial institution. Chris, with the help of our affinity card through local government federal credit union, and also now continuing with Civic Federal Credit Union, the consumers, the fire consumers, and the organizations that have that card, it's got a fire truck on the front of it. With the help of all of the fire service, we have successfully been able to donate over $3 million to the North Carolina State Fire Association. And Chris, we're also the only financial institution that's endorsed by the North Carolina Association of Fire Chiefs. So we're really proud of that.
Yes. And I know that Civic is very involved with sponsorships at the Midwinter Chiefs Conference and the SAFER Conference. So we certainly appreciate your participation in that too.
Thanks, Chris. I just did want to say I appreciate what the North Carolina Fire Service does for your community and all the personal sacrifices that you make. And we've got our contact information up, so if you need to get in contact with either myself or Jason Rackley, please do so, and I'll be happy to come out to your fire station.
Great. Thanks, Lauren. All right, we've got our last question here for Brian Griffith. Brian, how can an architect design to a budget?
Not an architect's favorite question, to be honest with you. We like designing pretty things, the biggest things, the boldest things, the things that are going to win us awards. I am not one of those architects, though. I am one of those that likes to know all the rules up front and make sure that I'm not designing my station, I'm designing the client's station. There is always a budget, there is always a timeline, there is always a need, and addressing all of those is extremely important to know from the beginning. There's usually a reluctance to tell what the budget is because they're afraid, everyone's afraid that the architect or contractor is going to spend everything and then some. Honestly, it's kind of the reverse. It's what we're trying to do is make as linear of a process as possible. So the idea of having a budget allows an architect to design to the actual needs and prices of the project itself and not get off track and have to redesign. And usually that costs money and time. And I think that's a difficult thing to bring a station through, to have all these expectations and visions set and then to send it out to bid and find out that it's 50 to 75% over budget. I don't think that's a good way to work. So typically I've worked before in terms of very fine chunks that are around a core. So you have this core of the initial design. What are the requirements of this station? What are the pieces that must be there? And then we get those correct, and then we kind of evaluate. And so we at Bobbitt have looked at what we call the feasibility, conceptual, prelim, and detailed design, which we sometimes call permitting, preliminary. And we tie that to actual construction data that we have both from fire stations. We also have it from other services as well. As we discussed earlier, stations are a lot different than they were in the past. It's not just the room with a few bedrooms and back in a day room and off we go. They are becoming highly technical. So we're bringing in all sorts of data. So we might have church aspects for the assembly room. We might have medical for the EMS. We might have office for some of those office portions where they have movable file systems. We might even have industrial design that we've done a lot of. All of that experience at Bobbitt is put back into the fire service. And it's not just the fire department service projects that we've done. We bring all of that breadth of knowledge at Bobbitt and bring it through to every phase. So we have the feasibility, that small, quick idea that we're trying to get refined. Conceptual, we're growing that core out a little bit further, getting more detailed. And then the preliminary, we're putting a lot of code review in there and doing all this to get from A to Z as fast as possible, because we at Bobbitt want to make sure that we're not designing a building multiple times. We are trying to get from the day you meet us to into your building as fast as possible, but make sure it's your building in the end. It is not just a cookie cutter. It is not just a repeat. is taking all of those things into account by having these multiple steps, and hopefully not having to retread very far by doing a beautiful design but doesn't meet the station's needs.
Yep. Ryan, what separates you from your competition?
The big thing at Bobbitt is that integration, is that as an architect, usually there's a series of square foot costs that are industry standard, and it's nationwide. There are some things that make things different. It's having that local experience throughout the Carolinas that makes us different, that I, as an architect, can reach out to a construction estimator with actual jobs in real areas with real dirt and real building materials, real local costs, real local subcontractors, and put that package together specifically for that station. It's not a guesstimate. It is much more than that. It's really great information based on, well, Bobbitt, we're approaching 75 years of history. So that's an enormous amount of data that we can provide to the table, along with our experience in this industry and others.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bringing the team together in the beginning to get those problems solved up front before you get to the end. So.
And it's not just estimating. We have, like I said, interior, civil, landscape. We can bring that out to the superintendents, the construction, and we can talk all of those details up front in design. So when it goes to the field, it's super efficient, and that helps in speed and in money.
Great. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. I think we got time for a quick question. Oh, it says that this question's for Lauren, but does Civic just loan to NC fire departments?
Well, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. And with local government federal credit union, some of you may know the focus wasn't on organizations or businesses. It was rare for us to have any organizational accounts with LGFCU. And that was one of the primary reasons why LGFCU sponsored Civic. And now we have the ability to not only help the fire service, EMS, and rescue departments, but also now we do focus on small business and regular business lending. So for-profit, nonprofit businesses, absolutely. Howie is our small business lender, and I could definitely get you in touch with him. I think I answered the question on the chat and provided my email address, but also I've got my contact information on one of the slides. So please call me or reach out to me by email, and I'll get you in touch with Howie.
Great. Thanks, Lauren.
You're welcome.
Well, I think that's all the time we have today. I want to thank everyone for participating today and logging into this webinar. Let me see. We will email out this webinar to everyone. We are doing a raffle, so everyone that logged in today will be able to be part of the raffle. We're giving away a Cabela's gift card. So we will email out the winner of the Cabela's gift card with the information, and it'll have all of our contact information on there too. So on behalf of Bobbitt and Civic and ACS, we want to thank you guys for your time today, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. So
Thank you.
thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
All right. Take care.
Bye.